Okay, so forget everything you think you know about epic heroes and divine battles. We're about to take one of the world's oldest stories, the Mahabharata, and just take it apart. And then we're going to rebuild it, not with gods and legends, but with flawed, passionate, and tragically real people. This is the Mahabharata as seen through the incredible lens of anthropologist Iravti Karve and her book, Yuganta.
Right off the bat, you have to understand, the Mahabharata just breaks the mold. It's not some clear-cut good versus evil story like you might see in, say, the Ramayana. No, this story throws us right into the deep end of moral ambiguity. This is not a tale of saints and sinners. It's a messy, complicated, and almost painfully human drama, where the heroes have some serious dark sides, and you know what? The villains, they sometimes have pretty compelling reasons for what they do.
And this is exactly the world that Iravti Karve explores in her revolutionary book, Yuganta. The title itself means the end of an epic, and that's precisely what her work feels like. She just sets aside all the divine stuff and treats the Mahabharata as this raw, secular record of human behavior, a story of people who are a lot like us, driven by passions and flaws that we know all too well.
Karve's whole mission is to peel back those layers of myth and divinity to get to the raw humanity at the core of these famous characters. In her analysis, Arjuna isn't just some perfect, righteous warrior. He's a man capable of absolutely brutal violence. Krishna isn't just a smiling, benevolent god. He's a master political strategist. She literally cuts these epic figures down to human size. And when she does that, they become flawed, vulnerable, and honestly, unsettlingly familiar.
And here's the thing. This isn't some new, modern, revisionist idea. The tradition itself calls the Mahabharata itihasa, which means thus it was. It was always meant to be seen as a kind of history, a chronicle of real people and real events. Karve just takes this seriously. She reads the epic not as a fairy tale, but as a profound and absolutely devastating human tragedy. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, let's start with a character who seems completely untouchable, Bhishma. He's the wise old patriarch, right? The very symbol of self-sacrifice. But Karve invites us to look a little closer at this revered hero, and what she finds is deeply unsettling. Karve asks a pretty radical question. What if Bhishma's famous vow, his ultimate act of self-sacrifice, wasn't noble at all? What if it was actually the poison that seeped into the roots of his family tree, the one single act that doomed them all to a catastrophic war? Just follow the dominoes. It starts with that famous vow. Then, because he's so desperate to get heirs for the family line, he abducts 3 princesses. This creates the tragedy of Amba, a woman whose life he completely shatters. His obsession leads him to arrange these disastrous marriages, condemning Gandhari, Kunti, and Madri to lifetimes of misery. And then, in the most shameful moment of all, when Draupadi is being publicly humiliated, Bhishma, the great protector, does nothing. He just sits there, debating points of dharma, while a woman is being destroyed in front of him. And you know what? It wasn't just Karve who saw a problem here. His own contemporaries saw it too. In this shocking public showdown, Shishupala just screams at him, "You are not celibate, you are just impotent." Now that's not just an insult, it is a brutal takedown of his entire identity. It shows that his so-called sacrifice was seen by some as a grotesque failure of his duty, not the height of it.
So Karve's conclusion is chilling. She argues that there is this dark psychology to extreme self-sacrifice. Bhishma got so drunk on the performance of his own nobility, so fixated on this abstract idea of his family's legacy, that he completely lost sight of the actual people he was supposed to protect. He became this monster of virtue, just completely indifferent to the suffering he was causing.
Okay, now let's pivot to another iconic figure, Gandhari. Her blindfold is one of the most powerful, haunting images in the whole epic. But is it really a symbol of devotion like we've always been told? Or is it something way more rebellious?
I mean, we all know the story, right? It's this tragic romance. Gandhari finds out her husband to be blind, and she decides to share his darkness. She blindfolds herself for life in this profound act of empathy and love. It's a powerful, moving story of sacrifice. But Karve just flips this whole romantic tragedy on its head. She asks a startling question. What if it wasn't love? What if it was rage? What if Gandhari, absolutely furious at being tricked into marrying a blind man, used her blindfold not as a gesture of solidarity, but as a weapon of protest? A lifelong, silent scream of defiance against the family that wronged her.
Think about that. This reframing is just radical. The blindfold is no longer this symbol of wifely devotion. It's a tool for psychological warfare. It's a constant, unspoken accusation, a daily reminder of her grievance. But it's a double-edged sword, right? An act of rebellion that also becomes a kind of self-imprisonment, trapping her in the very darkness she's using against everyone else. And here's the kicker. The text itself seems to back Karve up. Years later, after the war has destroyed their family, a broken Dhritarashtra finally confesses to his wife, "You have punished me severely." He admits it. He says her blindfold was like a fire that didn't just burn him but also consumed their children. The text confirms it. This was an act of war, not love.
So we've torn down two of the epic's greatest heroes. What are we left with? Why does this ancient story still hit so hard today? Well, Karve's answer is both really simple and incredibly profound.
The Mahabharata has lasted for thousands of years, not because it's a story of gods and demons, but because it's a story about us. It is a brutal, unflinchingly honest look at human nature. It's a tragedy fueled by passions that just overwhelm our better angels. It's a story about a world and about people that look an awful lot like our own.
I mean, just look at the raw emotions that are driving this epic. This isn't some fantasy world. This is the human condition in all its messy, complicated glory. Love, hate, courage, cowardice, it's all in there, laid bare for us to look at.
And this is the absolute heart of Karve's argument. The Mahabharata isn't a story you just passively listen to. It's a mirror. It's meant to be held up to our own lives. In the tragic idealism of Bhishma, in the simmering rage of Gandhari, and that tangled web of love and ambition that traps all the characters, we can't help but see ourselves.
In an age that loves gods and monsters, the Mahabharata gives us something far more terrifying and far more true, us. And it leaves us with this question that just echoes through the centuries, a question that Bhishma's life forces us to ask ourselves. How do we save ourselves from our own best intentions?